Hi, guys. We have an episode that is very special today. I am with a good friend of mine, also a collector of vintage cars for over 20 years. Hi, Ryan. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, Bonnie. Hey, everyone. First of all, thank you for having me on here. It's a very special moment for me too because this is not something I have really done, but to be a part of your episode here is very exciting. So thanks for having me on.
We're going to be talking about addiction in the hobby. And afterwards, we're going to look for minty cards on eBay and show you guys our buying process. I feel like a lot of people are wanting to one up each other on social media. So people would buy more than they can afford comfortably.
I couldn't agree more. I'm not a really big time person in this thing like you guys or some of my other good friends, but being in the hobby for a long time, seeing it from the beginning. Um, it wasn't like this back then, for me, like when I started off as like a 10-year-old, we could just enjoy it freely, play it, trade it, buy it. It seemed like it was really about enjoying the hobby more. But what you just said, especially through like social media, like Instagram, especially, I am seeing that a lot these days where people are trying to one up each other. It just seems like, oh, I got a PSA 7 Charizard, right? And people are like, wow, that's cool. Or the person that owns it will feel great. But somebody else might say, oh, how come it's only a 7? Like, why can't you get an 8, right? And then they might feel kind of lousy about their card. They'll feel sad. They'll feel depressed. They'll feel beaten. And that's not how it should feel. And maybe then they'll get the 8 one day. And then somebody will say, well, why didn't you get a 9? So that I always feel like, right, it's trying to one up each other. And you, I'm sure, have seen a lot of this in the hobby. And it feels like unless you hit a certain standard or certain status, that person might not feel respected, right? Or
Mhm.
they might feel like they don't want to share their collection, which is unfortunate.
Even nowadays, if you get a PSA 10, people will say, well, it's not a true 10. It's not a strong 10. They nitpick everything. So just buy what you want at the end of the day. Buy the card, not the grade.
Whoever this video reaches, I think that's probably the best takeaway I would say. There's always something. You're right.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, there's always going to be that at least that one person that kind of tries to ruin that moment or that mood. But if you buy what you love and you believe in what you buy, it doesn't matter what anybody else says.
Mhm.
As long as you believe in what you just purchased or what you want to enjoy, that's invaluable. That means more, way
Mhm.
more.
So, what other parts of addiction would you like to cover?
Wow, with everything that's going on these days, yeah, this sounds like this could easily be like a 10-hour video. Um,
Opening packs, gambling. Let's talk about that.
yeah, that's a big one. I have seen a lot of that. Yeah, box breaks, opening packs, right? Whether it's like through these live auctions or like in person, I think that is kind of a big thing that's going on right now. And I think that kind of goes to what you were saying before earlier. Sometimes maybe people end up spending more than they have or than they need to. And then that leads to greed, right?
hmm With my collection, I always tell people I like guarantee. Instead of buying packs to open and take a chance, I would rather buy the single card on the side and know what I'm getting because not every card that gets pulled out of a pack is an automatic 10. I've seen cards from the Rocket set that were pack fresh get a PSA 6 because of how it's cut out or the number of print lines on the hollow. So that there's a lot of risk when opening up packs and people are addicted.
You're 100% right. Yeah, you're a true expert with this. You do a lot of grading, a lot of services for people. So you've handled pack fresh cards, you've handled all of these, you see how the different grades are. Yeah, I think that's also a common misconception that a pack fresh, card doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a 10 or a 9, right? It could be an 8, 7, or like you said, it could be a 6.
hmm So, if you guys plan on opening up packs, make sure that you are milking it for content, is what I say.
That is golden advice. You know, if you whether you've got a light pack or a heavy pack, I mean, of course, right? There are different prices on those. Even if you buy a heavy pack, does that mean you're going to get the Dark Charizard or the Dark Dragonite? You could get, a Dark Vileplume, right? You might have just spent $700 on a pack and get, $150 card. So
Mm-hmm.
your return on investment is not the best. But if you were just looking for maybe a Dark Charizard, that's what nowadays, $400 or $500,
First
and you at
edition.
least get the guaranteed card,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or you could spend a little more and get a really good grade on that too. So yeah, with the packs, you either just keep sealed or use that as an investment. You could sell that or trade for it. You could probably even trade for the actual card you're looking for.
This can lead us to our next topic. We are going to be talking about how we find minty cards on eBay, and we're going to show some examples. What is your buying process like on eBay?
This is a fun one. This one can take a little bit of time, as you know, and I know other collectors know as well. The number one advice I would give from my personal experience over the many years I've been in this hobby is it takes patience. Don't settle for anything. Don't rush into anything. Don't feel like this is your only chance to get a mint or near mint card, right? There's always going to be another one.
Mm-hmm.
The supply is out there. You just have to be a bit patient. Yeah, maybe we'll take an example for maybe a shadowless Charizard, right? Since you and
Yes.
I both love collecting that, we are both, Bonnie and I are trying to take over the world with that. For me, what I try to do is I actually try to make my search a little bit vague. I don't make it super specific. I don't go to eBay and type in base set, shadowless, mint condition, or near mint condition, or include all those qualifiers. What I'll do is I'll type in, base set Charizard shadowless, and then maybe put the minus for like custom, proxy, metal, try to eliminate some of those. But I want to see all the shadowless cards that show up, whether it's graded or not, because sometimes people in their titles, they may not put certain words, right? They may not put Shadowless. They may not put Charizard. Um, they may or may not put PSA or Beckett too, right? I just want to see all of them because when people list, they all have different ways of listing things. Sometimes a lot of the ones that I found too, hunting cards, it never even had the words like mint or near mint.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just say 1999 Pokemon Charizard,
I would like to
something
add
like
to
that.
that. In cases like that, don't buy it right away. I would message the seller saying, this is my definition of near mint. A card with barely any scratches, barely any whitening. Um, the clear coat is still clean. I'm looking for a near mint card and see how they respond. If they say, yeah, this is near mint, this is exactly what you're describing, great, you can buy it. And if it is false, you easily win the case. That's what I do with every single high end card I buy off of eBay. I make sure me and the seller are on the same page with condition. It goes back to communication. If you communicate well with the seller and it's proof, like it's on eBay saved in the messages, you can easily win a case if you are wronged.
You're right. Going back to other things that you preach to, how important communication is. Basic communication in business, right? This is buying and selling. You have to talk with each other. And if you have good communication and they don't, then that kind of answers something as well, right? Maybe you don't want to do business with this person, move on. Especially with these high end items, right? We're looking at not even hundreds or thousands of dollars. So you really got to be careful.
Mm-hmm. And in different lightings, a lot of times they take pictures in maybe dark lighting. It's better to recommend that they take the photos in an LED light setting or in sunlight. Sunlight helps a lot. And make sure they're taking it at an angle where you can see scratches.
I think one piece of advice I would lend, because I've learned from personal experience, it's never a bad thing to ask for more pictures. If you have 10 pictures in the listing and they send you 5 more and it's not enough, ask for 5 more. Especially with these very high end purchases, I would say definitely communicate and don't be shy to ask
Mm-hmm.
this.
Be open to red flags. A seller that is confident in their card, they wouldn't hesitate to send you pictures if they want to sell it. But if someone knows there's an issue with their card, they would make excuses or take really bad pictures still and try to hide damage. So, like Ryan said in the beginning, you don't settle for any less. If you have any red flags, there's always another card. Okay, we can go over some examples right now. Let's
Sure,
do
absolutely.
a screen share. Our first example is the Shadowless Charizard. Like Ryan said before, some listings do not have the condition in the title. So we scroll down to the bottom. There is no condition, like specific condition in the description. It only says use. When it says used, it could be a variety of condition from light play to even near mint. And that can be dangerous because the seller can argue that they mentioned used and they showed a lot of pictures. It's up to the buyer to buy what they see. We check out the front of this card. It looks very nice. It's really good to look at the edges. That's the first thing I look at, because if the edges have issues, that's an indicator for me that the card has been played. So I would automatically go to the back first because I guess it's easier for the eyes. If you look at the front, sometimes it's hard to see whitening, but automatically on the back, it's very easy to spot. So right away, we see whitening. And because of that, we can assume that there's scratches on the cards. I would deem this moderately played and adjust my offer accordingly. But I personally would not buy played cards.
Yeah, this is a really good first example you're showing. And usually you're not going to find a card that, the back is really bad, but the front is really good. It kind of goes together. So like Bonnie was saying, if the back has as much whitening as like this one, chances are there are scratches on the face or the front of the card too.
The next example is another Shadowless Charizard. What I usually do, well, at least back then, was study PSA's grading standards. We have a great example of a PSA 4. We can see that it doesn't seem to have any damage on the hollow, and for the front to have so much edge wear, especially on the corner, we already could probably prejudge what the back is going to look like. A lot of whitening. And so by studying examples like this, when we buy raw cards, we can give a better approximate guess of the grade that it would get.
That's very true. I think this is something that I think Bonnie and I over the years have learned through personal experience, but especially Bonnie, she is an expert in this field, a true expert.
This is another example. Sometimes it's good to compare two examples of the same grade. So that was a PSA 4. This is another PSA 4. This one has a cleaner front. You don't really see damage on the corners. So a card without any creases could be a PSA 4. For me, once a card has a dent and it's mint, it automatically brings it down to a 6. If it has a crease instead of a dent, it would be automatic 5 for me. And with all the extra damage like whitening or scratches, I start deducting points from there. If the crease goes through the card, I might consider giving it a 1. If it does not go through the card and the card is played, I would give it a 2 just because of that.
And I think at this point it would be nice to kind of reiterate to the viewers, Bonnie really knows how to grade these cards. She is very good and very accurate through a lot of experience, a lot of hard work.
Thank you. I've been doing it for so long that sometimes I forget there are some people that are completely new. I don't really remember all the time what it's like to be exposed to so many graded cards for the first time. It's intimidating. I think people listening to this type of information, it would give them a rocket start in their grading journey. Here's another example of a PSA 9. Pay close attention to the centering. I think this one's too off-centered to be a 10, and it has white spots on the top right corner and the bottom left edge. I got some 10s that are very off-centered, so I can't tell a PSA.
Yeah, there's a bit of a hit and miss sometimes too. There's a lot of subjectivity with this sometimes, right? And it also depends on the mood of the grader, right? Which we've heard. Sometimes you catch them on a better day or not. But there is a level of subjectivity as well, which makes this a little bit tricky.
Mm-hmm. This is actually a pretty clean Beckett 7.5. Usually Beckett grades underneath 9s, they would drop a lot if you cross over to PSA. So this 7.5, most likely it might be a PSA 6. Honestly, it doesn't look like a PSA 6. It looks like a PSA 8.
That does look pretty good, actually. That back is better than some of the 8s that I've seen as well.
Mm-hmm. At times like this, you question, why did I get the grade that I got? So it would be really good to ask for more pictures and different lightings.
Yeah, a very, very good point, especially when you're starting to get up into these near mint grades, right? These higher grades. I mean, look how much this is. You're not talking $200-300, you're talking like a couple $1,000s now. So you definitely need to ask questions, ask for more pictures, and there'll be a part of this where you have to judge it yourself. The seller that you interact with will be one part of the story. The other part will be up to you to make that decision whether to decide to get it or not.
This is a really good seller. Look at this. I rarely see pictures like this.
So this is a fantastic example that Bonnie found to share with you guys, because I think what she's highlighting here is there's different lighting. You've got white lighting, yellow lighting. It'll help to show different parts of the card, because we can see certain imperfections in different lighting.
Since this is such a good example, let's try to pre-grade this card together. I see scratches on the flame.
Mm-hmm. There are some
Vertical scratches, probably from sliding the card in and out of a sleeve. With these vintage cards, you have to pay attention to how it's cut. You see some corners is very rounded, and then you look at the top left, it's not as rounded, and I think that affects the grade.
Oh yeah, and the centering too. I mean, it's not bad. It's a little bit off centered. I can see from top to bottom and left to right.
It's very common with these shadowless cards.
Yeah, it is tricky, especially with some of these old prints. And then, I guess a little bit of history with shadowless. There were so many different print runs and trials and errors between first edition and shadowless and unlimited. And, WotC was trying to figure a lot of this stuff out. And there were some QC issues, definitely.
Quality control. You see how the scratches on the flame disappeared with this direction of lighting?
Exactly. This is exactly what is such good advice that you're highlighting, because different lighting, different angles will not show those lines or those scratches, but in other cases you'll see them.
What grade would you give this card with the information that we got from the front?
Oh, the front. Well,
I already have a number in mind.
Oh, I'm so just surface grade
Mm-hmm.
then. So this is a bit of a test on me. Assuming we're just looking at the hollow foil part, maybe a 7 at best.
In my mind, it's 8. Automatically dropped to an 8 with a chance of 7.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to have a little bit of a cushion too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's usually what I've done going into it. If you're expecting a 9, right, but it could come back an 8, or you expect it to be an 8, it could come back a 7, just to have a little bit of that leeway.
You don't want to overpay.
Exactly.
And consider potential chances of getting upcharged. So a lot of people just buy the card outright, but the grading fee for that card, it doesn't make the price that you pay worth it. And a fun fact about this card is there is a hollow shift on the top. Do you see that corner underneath Charmeleon?
Oh, good point. So you have a very good eye. Yes, you just highlighted something else that is, I guess you would consider a bit of a misprint, right?
Mm-hmm. It's very common with these cards, but the bigger it is, the more, I guess, special it is.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look at the back. I do not like that he used a white background for this card.
It's a little bit hard to tell. So, like Bonnie was saying, hopefully, if there isn't a dark background here, this is where a good opportunity is to contact the seller and say, hi, I saw your pictures. Could you please provide a picture of the back on a different, darker background?
And he
Could you
did.
perhaps use like a black background? Yeah. So maybe in this case, there is one towards the end.
So because the seller is like this, most likely I would choose him over someone like this. This is a lot less appealing than this seller. From the extra photos that he added, we can see that there's more scratches. There's one on the right side. The type of scratches that is shown also can dictate how played the card is. If it's vertical scratches like this, it might be a near mint card that they slid in and out of a sleeve. Whereas if there's a bunch of random scratches with curves, that is a sign that the card has been handled and potentially played. And then the back, we can see that there are a lot of whitening. So far, from what I've seen, I brought the card down to a 7. And I see a potential crease right here. Do you see that, Ryan?
Yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah, I do, Bonnie. That's so at this point, this is where we would probably ask the seller, could you please provide more pictures of the back of the card, maybe this top portion, above where it says Pokemon, and try to ask for different angles too, because you're suspecting a possible crease.
If this is a crease, I would bring this down to a 5. We look at an example of a PSA 5. This one has a lot of whitening, but this is the price range of a PSA 5, which is approximately the same as this raw one, but that one probably doesn't have a crease. This one is cleaner other than that, so it all depends on your taste. I'd say this price is not really a good price, maybe around 500 for this card, raw.
That's a good point too. I like how you were explaining the comparison between what we think this could be a potential 5 versus an actual 5, and the price range is kind of there, but maybe this price is a bit high. And I think I noticed too, this one doesn't have a make offer button. You can still try to negotiate through the messages. And there have been a lot of times where, if they want to work with you, you can still negotiate.
You can ask the seller, hey, I'm interested in this card. Do you have an IG account? And see if you can take the deal off of eBay because I think they take 12% now.
It's high, yeah.
Yeah, so they take a huge chunk. That's why I would ask them for that. It doesn't hurt. I'm curious about this Blastoise. It's beautiful. Let's check the back. It's not bad for a first edition.
It's not. I've actually been looking at this one to maybe fill my
Let
binder. It's really funny you mentioned that.
me
I've
buy it
been
real
looking at
quick.
the same one.
You said you were
Uh,
looking at this one?
yeah, I was.
Oh,
It's so funny. Yeah, I told you that. Yeah, maybe just a little background. I have a graded one in my collection, but it left a hole in my binder, and I wanted to fill my binder up with a decent copy. You know, it doesn't need to be a PSA 9 or 10, but this was one, and I think it's a thick stamp as well. And it looks like maybe Bonnie's gonna snipe it from me just because I said I wanted it. So
good thing I'm broke right now. I have no monies. Let's take a look at these two. When I clicked on this, I noticed the price difference. This is only a $100 drop. Let's take a look at this. You saw how minty this was, right?
hmm
Really clean. Look at this. Scratches, deep
oh yeah,
scratches. These are not scruffs. These are crevices on the card.
right.
I would say damaged cards are approximately 20% of the mint card price. With exceptions of Charizards like this, I would do maybe 30%, but I wouldn't do any more.
What you're trying to say too, and to let people know, is you need to have a little bit of a cushion when you buy these kind of cards. So I think Bonnie's idea, there should be a 20 or 30% value of a mint card. I think that's a good quick rule to follow by, just to kind of protect yourself as well.
I was never an advocate of buying damaged cards. I guess if people are just in it just to get the card, fill up a binder, by all means, go ahead and buy it. From an investor standpoint, I would never buy a damaged card because the prices of mint cards will go up a lot more quicker than the price of a damaged card. Take Plasma Storm Charizards for example. I purchased a damaged Plasma Storm Charizard for $30, and at the same time, Plasma Storm Charizards in near mint condition is $100. Fast forward to today. Near mint Plasma Storm Charizards are approximately $600, and that damaged card, I would say it's around $170 to $250. You see that huge price difference? That is why I buy near mint cards.
I think that is a really good rule to abide by. Like you said, there are different collectors out there. Maybe they just want a played copy or they just want something to fill a binder. But like you, I am a near mint to mint collector as well, even for raw cards. And especially when you're going for big cards, if you're going more for the collectability and investability aspect, you definitely want to invest in a better quality card because it is such a big card. We look at a Shadowless Charizard, it's one of the most iconic cards in the game. It's going to be worth a lot more in the long run. I think that's also true with supply and demand. I think there's a fair amount of damaged cards out there, so it's a lot easier to find a lot of those moderately played or heavily played. They're all around the same price, and
Mhm.
maybe not as many mint or near mint cards. Of course, it does take some patience and persistence, but yeah, I definitely echo the same sentiment.
I think you should buy this Blastoise.
So what I would do at this point is I would message the seller and I would say, hi, I hope all is well. I am interested in your Blastoise card. Could you please provide me additional pictures, as many as you can, of the front and the back? And I would probably also ask, what condition do you think the card is in? Now, again, this is kind of a subjective point, but sometimes I like to get an idea of what they would say. Just to hear what they're going to say. A more experienced seller and collector might say, I'm not a professional grader. Please use the pictures to judge this. But in my opinion, I think it would do okay. It would do well. And what I look for is I don't want to hear things like, oh, it does have a crease here, or it might have a little bend here, or it might have some pitting here or something, just to kind of get an idea of what they would say. So, yes, exactly. Bonnie, yeah, she's one with the words, as you guys probably also know. So that's that's pretty much how I would approach this card. Especially, yeah, this is one that I have been looking at. So that would have been my thought process.
So that is the last example. Hopefully, this helps you guys a lot. Let me know if there's anything you want me to clarify, and I'll do my best to answer those concerns. Again, this is Ryan. He has been a huge vintage collector for over 20 years, and he definitely knows the game well. Any last words, Ryan?
I want to say thank you again very much for having me on. It's been a privilege. It's always nice talking to you. I learn from you all the time, and hopefully this can help at least one person. And again, for anybody that's watching out here, Bonnie is really one of the best sources in this hobby, in this community, for this kind of information. And not even just for TCGs, but the messages that she conveys to people. So I would definitely listen to what Bonnie has to say because she's one of the realest people in the hobby.
Aw.
So thanks again for having me here.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan. Bye, guys.